At my dad's retirement party, I gave a speech thanking him for teaching me everything I know. My brother stood up after and said, "I guess some of us had to learn things the hard way, while others just watched." Everyone laughed. My dad clapped. That night, I asked what I did wrong. He said, "He's always been more passionate than you." 3 years later, I took over their industry. At a conference, they tried to sit at my table. I told the waiter, "Make sure they're moved." I remember the exact sound the room made when they laughed at me. The clink of glasses, a few gasps, some awkward chuckles. But mostly just that kind of laugh people make when they're relieved it's not them being humiliated. This story started at my dad's retirement party. I didn't know it at the time, but that night would split my life in two. My dad, Roy Denton, ran Denton and Sons Construction for over 30 years in Columbus, Ohio. A solid business. Good reputation. He started as a roofer when he was 19. By 35, he owned the company. By 60, he had 2 sons working under him. Or, more accurately, next to him, only one of us really got to be under his wing. Mitch, my older brother, was always the one. Loud, confident, the kind of guy who could say something wrong and still get a room to nod along. He started swinging a hammer when he was 15 and never looked back. I took longer. I was quieter. Liked math. Liked solving problems. But if you asked my dad, passion beat precision every time. I still remember what I wore that night. Navy blazer, khakis, brown shoes. I practiced my speech all day. Kept it simple. I wanted to honor him. I said, "Dad, you taught me to work hard, to keep my word, and to stay steady. You taught me that it's not always the loudest guy who builds the tallest building, it's the one who shows up every morning." A few nods. A couple polite claps. Then Mitch stood up. He had a bourbon in one hand and that smug smirk on his face. He didn't even walk to the mic. Just turned toward the crowd and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "I guess some of us had to learn things the hard way while others just watched." The laughter came fast. Real laughter. Not polite. I looked around. My dad was clapping. That one moment, it changed something in me. It wasn't just embarrassment. It was betrayal. My own family thought I was a spectator. A shadow. And that wasn't the first time they made me feel that way. It was just the first time they did it in public. I left early. Got in my car, still wearing the blazer, and just sat in the driveway for over an hour. The paper with my speech was still folded in my pocket. I called my dad the next morning. I asked him straight up, what did I do wrong? He didn't pause. He didn't soften it. He said, "He's always been more passionate than you." I didn't say much after that. I didn't need to. That was the moment I knew I was done trying to win their respect. If I ever got it, it wouldn't be because I waited around. It would be because I built something they couldn't ignore. I left Denton and Sons 2 weeks later. No big fight. No blow-up. Just told them I wanted to try something on my own. They didn't ask questions. They didn't stop me. I moved to Cincinnati. Got a cheap apartment. Lived small. I used the savings I had and took out a business loan. I knew what the construction industry was missing, especially companies like my dad's. They were still using paper schedules, whiteboards, and yelling across job sites. Everything was chaos. Everything was slow. So I built something better. A job site management app. Real-time scheduling. Equipment tracking. Crew communication. I knew what foreman needed because I'd seen the chaos firsthand. I spent every night working on that app. I didn't take weekends. I didn't date. I became obsessed. I got lucky with one small contractor. They gave me a shot. After that, word spread. By the second year, I had 6 clients. By the third, we had deals in 5 states and got invited to the North American Construction and Tech Expo in Chicago. And not just to attend. I was asked to be a keynote speaker. I almost said no. But then I saw who else was attending. Denton and Sons. They had a booth. Not a main speaker. Not a sponsor. Just a booth. And I was the one on the banner. The day of the keynote, I wore a gray suit, custom tailored, looked sharp. I saw Mitch and Dad in the crowd before I went on stage. Dad still wore his company jacket. Mitch had the same cocky smirk from 3 years ago. My speech was about the future, about how slow tech adoption was killing good construction companies, how those who refused to evolve were going extinct. I didn't name names, but they knew. Afterward, there was a networking dinner. Every keynote speaker had their own table at the front of the ballroom. My table had investors, press, and my lead engineer. The placard said Harrison Denton, founder, Buildright Systems. I saw Mitch and Dad walking toward us. They didn't ask. Just started to pull out chairs. I leaned over to the waiter and said, "Make sure they're moved." He nodded and walked away. 2 minutes later, another waiter came over. "Sorry, gentlemen. This table's reserved. Let me show you to yours." I didn't look at them. They got sat in the back corner. I could feel Mitch's eyes on me the whole meal. Could feel Dad's silence. Heavy and awkward. But I didn't turn around. Not yet. After that night in Chicago, things didn't cool down. They heated up. A week after the conference, I got a text from Mitch. "Real classy move. Dad's humiliated. You happy?" I didn't reply. A few hours later, I got an email from a contractor we were in talks with. They pulled out. Said they decided to go with a more traditional partner. Their wording felt too familiar. I checked. Their new partner? Denton and Sons. Mitch had undercut me. I knew their margins. I knew they couldn't afford to go that low unless they were bleeding money just to beat me. Which meant this was personal. He was trying to choke me out, even if it cost him. Fine. Two can play that game. I went back into war mode. Started calling every contact I had. I sweetened deals. I offered free trials, deferred billing. My margins thinned, but I kept the accounts. Then something strange happened. One of the firms I was close to signing with ghosted me. Just disappeared. I dug around. A buddy who worked in a supply chain firm said he heard someone from Denton and Sons spread a rumor that my software had a data breach. Total lie. But it scared off 2 other firms before I could stop it. I called my dad. Not Mitch. Dad. I said, "You know what your son is doing?" He sighed. "You brought this on yourself, Harrison. You humiliated him." Couldn't believe it. I said, "He's sabotaging my business." Dad's tone was cold. "He's protecting ours." That's when I realized. I wasn't just competing with them anymore. I was fighting them. They weren't just trying to stay afloat. They were trying to kill me off before I got too big to stop. So I did something I wasn't proud of. I called their site manager, a guy named Wes. He'd worked for my dad for 20 years. Loyal guy, but tired. I offered him double to come work for me. He said no. So I found their supplier. Offered them an exclusive deal on our inventory management system, free for a year, full support, just to drop Denton and Sons. They said yes. 2 months later, I heard one of their biggest projects stalled for 4 weeks. No materials. That's when the cracks really started to show. I got photos from a friend in Columbus. Denton and Sons had started outsourcing labor to cut costs. The new crews were sloppy. One job site got flagged for OSHA violations. Another one had a foundation pour that went wrong and cost them $50,000 to redo. Then Mitch showed up at my office. No call. No warning. Just walked into the lobby one morning with that same damn smirk. My assistant buzzed me. I let him in. He didn't sit down. He said, "You happy? You poisoned our vendors, stole our guys, trashed our name. You really think that makes you better?" I stood up. Looked him straight in the eye. "No," I said. "But I didn't start this. You embarrassed Dad in front of the whole damn industry. And you embarrassed me in front of our family." He stared at me for a long time. Then he said, "This isn't over." I said no. It's just starting. And I meant it. After Mitch left my office that day, I expected retaliation. What I didn't expect was silence. For almost 2 months, there was nothing. No more contractors pulling out. No more rumors. No sign of Mitch or my dad. It was quiet. Too quiet. I started sleeping with one eye open, checking our contracts twice, even keeping my phone on during meetings in case something blew up. But nothing happened. Then I got a call from one of our newest clients, a mid-size firm in Akron. They said they'd just been contacted by someone offering a clone of our software for half the price. At first, I didn't think much of it. People try to copy what works all the time. But then they said the pitch included our user interface, same dashboard, same features, just a different logo. I asked if they had a copy of the email. They forwarded it. It came from a company called Gridcore Systems. I ran a background check. Gridcore was a shell company. No real website. No reviews. But one of the listed founders was real. A guy named Dylan Messner. I recognized the name. He was a junior developer I'd fired a year ago for leaking an early version of our dashboard to a competitor. And suddenly it all clicked. Mitch had found him, hired him, funded a duplicate company and was trying to pass off my software as his own. They didn't just want to compete anymore. They wanted to erase me. I was shaking. It wasn't just business anymore. It wasn't even about Dad or the retirement party. Mitch wanted me gone. I spent the next week gathering everything I could. Emails, code history, employee contracts. Dylan had signed a strict non-compete. If he reused even a line of code from our platform, I could sue. I called my lawyer. We built a case. But something else happened during that time, something I didn't expect. Dad called. Not Mitch. Not anyone from the company. Dad. He asked if I'd come to lunch. Part of me wanted to hang up. The other part was too curious. We met at this little diner on the edge of Columbus. Same one he used to take me and Mitch to when we were kids. He looked older. Tired. I guess I hadn't seen him face to face in almost a year. He didn't order food. Just coffee. I waited. Then he said, "He's losing it, Harrison." I blinked. What? Mitch? He's spiraling. The business is bleeding cash. He's pulling money from places he shouldn't. He's obsessed with beating you. He can't sleep. I stared at him. And you're just now telling me this? He looked down. I didn't know it was this bad. I said nothing. Then he said the part that really stuck. I was wrong about you. Silence again. You don't yell. You don't throw things. You don't make big speeches. But you built something real. Something strong. You don't need passion. You've got discipline. It should have felt good. But all I felt was numb. I said, "Why are you telling me this?" He looked me straight in the eye. Because I'm scared he's going to ruin everything. And there it was. It wasn't about me. It was about the business. Again. Still. Always. I stood up. You made your choice a long time ago, Dad. He didn't argue. He didn't stop me when I walked out. I drove back to Cincinnati in silence, staring at the road like it was the only thing I could control. When I got home, I called my lawyer. File the lawsuit, I said. And we did. The lawsuit hit them hard. We filed in federal court, alleging code theft, violation of a non-compete, corporate sabotage. The evidence was airtight. Dylan's copied lines were nearly word for word. Even the variable names hadn't been changed in some places. Amateur stuff. Mitch went quiet for a week. Then the headlines came. Upstart tech firm sues former employer for IP theft. Family feud turns legal in construction tech war. Clients started backing off from Denton and Sons. Investors pulled out. Their booth at the next expo was canceled. I didn't do interviews, but the court documents were public and people talked. It wasn't just a lawsuit. It was humiliation. And this time it wasn't mine. A month later, Denton and Sons filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It hit me like a punch in the gut. Not because I felt bad for Mitch, but because it didn't feel how I thought it would. For 3 years I dreamed of this, of showing them I was better, of winning. But when I read the news, I didn't feel like a winner. I felt tired. That same night, I got a call from Mitch. I didn't answer. He called again, then again. I picked up on the fourth. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just said, "You killed us." I waited. Then he said, "You win. Congratulations." And hung up. That was it. No fight. No apology. The next morning, I found out Dad had signed over full control of the company to Mitch 6 months ago. When things started getting bad, he tried to protect him by walking away. Left him alone to sink or swim. Mitch sank. 2 weeks later, I found out Mitch had taken out a personal loan to keep Gridcore afloat after the lawsuit froze their accounts. The bank came after him hard. He lost his house, his car, everything. And Dad? I never heard from him again. Last I checked, he moved to live with his sister in Kentucky. Nobody talks about him anymore. As for me, I kept building. My company is 5 times the size it was back then. We dominate the Midwest. We're expanding south now. There's still a picture of that Chicago Expo on the office wall, me at the front table, smiling. But here's the thing nobody tells you about revenge. It doesn't heal you. It just empties you out in a different way. I got what I wanted. I proved my worth. I destroyed the ones who laughed at me. And I still wake up some mornings wondering if it was worth it. I made mistakes, too. I let pride guide me. I let silence fester into something sharp. But I didn't break first. They did. And in this business, that's all that matters.